Joining us now on our Book Talk segment, great to welcome a man who's written a very interesting and a kind of a fun book as well for anybody who likes to travel or learn all about navigation. It's called How to Go Anywhere and Not Get Lost, a guide to navigation for young adventurers. We're joined today by a world traveler himself, a journalist, Hans Aschim, and he joined us, I believe, from up in New York today. And Hans, good to talk with you. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you, Doug?
I'm doing great. How are things in New York? I grew up there.
Oh, spring is here. Kind of.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I know.
Every day is a little different.
Yep, I know you live out Rockaway Beach part of the year, and up in the Catskills. So good places to be, and when it's nice.
Yeah, when it's nice, even when it's not, the beach up here is my favorite in the winter. We had a lot of nor'easters, so we had snowy beach times, and it's always fun when it snows.
I remember those. Yeah, that's why I came to Florida. Well, I really enjoyed reading through your book, and it's geared obviously for young folks, but anybody can get something out of it. And you kind of really go over things that I didn't know a lot about. But navigation, I think a lot of people are so used to having the GPS either in the car or on the phone. You don't have to know that anymore, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's probably good to know some of the basics of navigating nowadays, isn't it? Even though the book is for fun, but I mean, if you ever get lost somewhere, it's probably good to know some of this stuff.
Yeah, it's great to know, and GPS is an amazing technology, and it's a great tool. And I talk about it in the book and talk about how it works and how earlier navigational technologies kind of paved the way for that to come. But it's just one tool, and I think that maybe we're maybe a little over reliant on that one tool, and by just using one tool, we're missing out on some of the other kind of experiences that come with using observational skills to navigate. And especially, after a year of using screens to do most of our learning and communication, this book's a great opportunity to do some off-screen learning and get outside and test what you learn right away.
And no doubt. In high school, in our senior year, we used to go once a year. Every class went up to a camp in New Hampshire. And one of the things the senior class had to do, they'd drive in the middle of nowhere and give you a compass and say, find your way back. So we had to learn some navigation skill. We learned beforehand what we're supposed to do, but I think that's a good test.
It's a great show. That sounds fun. I would pay to do that.
I didn't like it, but it was good to learn how to do. But I think most people nowadays, and you're not really taught that, I guess, in schools. So you're providing a service here. But let's talk a little bit about some of the things. Obviously, most people know, or at least I hope they know, what a compass. I guess that's the first thing we kind of learn. Points north, so at least you know one direction, and if you know one, you know the other three. But talk about some of the other ones in the book. Just looking at a tree and finding north. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of useful ways of navigating, and like I said with the GPS, that's one way. And with navigation, the key here is about getting as many sources of information as you can in order to make the best choice possible. And so, if you're using a compass and you have north, that's wonderful, great source of information. But you can also use environmental factors like a tree you mentioned. In the northern hemisphere, trees get the most light year round, the most sunlight on the south side. So if you look at a tree and it's not being blocked by buildings or cliffs or rocks or anything, and you just have a tree that gets really uninterrupted light, you're going to notice the south side of that tree is going to be a bit more full, probably going to have more branches, it's going to be a bit denser. And it's the same way that plants in your house want to reach toward the sunlight and will grow fuller on the sides with more light. But if you don't have trees or you're getting kind of mixed messages from the trees, that's when you want to use other sources of information. You use something like the sun and the angle of the sun, depending on the time of day where you are, can be a really great way of determining direction as well.
Yeah, you talk about using, like you just said, using the stars to tell time. I guess most people know the North Star or the Big Dipper and all that. So I guess if you know those basic constellations, that'll help you, right? If you have to tell time.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And we go through how to find all those and kind of surefire ways of locating the North Star, and making a star clock is a really fun activity you can do at home. And it's simple. All you need is a paper plate or a piece of paper to draw on, and it's a matter of kind of lining up the angle of the Big Dipper and the North Star with your clock that you made, and doing a really simple bit of math, and then you'll get a pretty accurate reading for the time. I've done it and found that I usually get within 15 minutes of what my watch says.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like it's one of these cool things. And then, of course, in the book, we'll go into the background of kind of how that's possible and why it works that way. And it has to do with the rotation of the Earth and our relativity to the stars.
I should tell the audience, the book, obviously, a lot of great information, but a lot of great illustrations as well, and activities, like we just mentioned, that teaches you how to make a star clock, other things like a stick chart, a sextant, which the ship captains used going back, I guess, to the 1600s, even before that, right?
Right, exactly, yeah. And now you can make one with really simple household materials and get a sense of your how far north of the equator you are. And it's really fascinating. And when you put it in the context of how big that solution is, how saying where I'm standing right now, I know is approximately 38 degrees north, and that's this far from the North Pole. And I think for an adult or a kid, it's a really cool, kind of empowering thing to be able to figure out using just what you know and a few basic materials from the house. One
thing I learned, and I was talking about this with my folks not too long ago. We went to Hawaii when we were kids, and we were figuring out, well, how did people get there originally? These islands in the middle of nowhere, and you kind of talk about that, right? The Polynesians and the wayfinders, and through the water somehow they found their way. So can you explain that briefly? Because we were trying to figure out how did people get to those places in canoes, or kayaks, or whatever the boats were back then.
Right. Yeah. They're voyaging canoes. They're specially built canoes for doing longer voyages. So they had, kind of a fishing size one, and then for longer journeys, they would get bigger. And it's actually, that's what inspired the book in the first place was my time in Hawaii. I was covering a big wave surfing competition and sort of got kind of lost in the ocean. And I got really interested in how, cultures navigated way before compasses or independent of compasses and different tools. And the Polynesian tradition of wayfinding is really fascinating, and it has everything to do with observation and really careful observation of not just the stars, but also the movement of the ocean and the wind and the prevailing swells that they were used to in their part of the world, and just really paying such close attention to that.
They're almost lanes in the water, right? I'm sorry, they're almost like lanes in the water that they'd follow. Is that kind of how it was?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. They would know the movement of their boat, and they would, based on the movement of their boat, they would feel which direction they were facing and traveling in. Really fascinating stuff. And sadly, it was nearly almost completely lost. It was in the 1970s, 60s. It was down to just a handful of they're called flow navigators, who are master navigators, and they were in Micronesia. In Hawaii, there weren't any. And the man who wrote the foreword for my book, Noah Thompson, who's someone I look up to a lot, was one of the key figures in really reviving this ancient knowledge and bringing it back to the Hawaiian people and spreading it around the world. And so with this book, I hope I can do my small part to spread that knowledge even further.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think of it. Obviously, thousands of miles from really anywhere else, Hawaii is in there, and then people from somewhere found their way there. It's really, really amazing. Well, the name of the book, again, is How to Go Anywhere, Not Get Lost, a guide to navigation for young adventurers. And Hans Aschim has been our guest today. And Hans, you have a website you want to direct people to get the book?
Yeah, so the book's available anywhere books are sold. You can find it just about anywhere. If you want to know more about me or connect with me, my social media is my name, Hans Aschim, HANSASCHIM, and hansaschim.com is my website, so I'm pretty easy to find.
Great. I'm sorry I pronounced your name wrong. It's Aschim, not Aschim. Okay. But we'll put a link on our website as well. But Hans, real pleasure talking to you. Always great to talk to somebody up in New York on top of just talking to you anyway, and hopefully we can talk to you again. Thanks for being with us.
Sounds good. It's a pleasure, Doug. Thank you very much.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.